if you step back and look at this as a financial investment, Elon Musk put in about $270 million of his own money to help get Donald Trump elected. And since election day, his net worth has gone up 170 billion with a B because Wall Street is so enthused about the fact that now he's, best mates with the incoming president.
What do we think then, Danny? Firstly, is TikTok going to be sold? Secondly, if it's going to be sold, is it going to be sold to one Musk?
Well, that's a $64,000 question, or more like, the $100 billion question. I, if I had to guess, I don't think Elon Musk is going to buy it. If you look at the story, the reporting, this is something that apparently the Chinese state is looking at as a kind of contingency. He, unlike him, usually has not said anything publicly. And it was not clear at all that actually this is his idea. I'm sure, he would potentially fancy it, but that's a big old thing to take on. And I don't know if he wants to really go fully on, that much deeper into social media when he already has his plate with X, as well as, sending rockets into outer space and doing all the other stuff he does.
And could he afford it? Because, I mean, Twitter was a disastrous financial purchase. I mean, he tried to get out of it. The courts made him stick with it. He spent 44 billion quid. It's not worth 44 billion quid. What's TikTok? What's TikTok worth? How much of an appetizing prospect is it?
Oh, many, many tens of billions, much more than Twitter. But what's kind of really quite extraordinary is, if you step back and look at this as a financial investment, Elon Musk put in about $270 million of his own money to help get Donald Trump elected. And since election day, his net worth has gone up 170 billion with a B because Wall Street is so enthused about the fact that now he's, best mates with the incoming president. And I think this is going to be wonderful for all of his companies. So, in the space of 6 weeks, he's gained $170 billion worth of wealth. So, yeah, he can afford it if he really wanted to.
And how much of that has come from Twitter? Because Twitter doesn't make money, but it's made him more influential. And I wonder if would TikTok do the same thing?
Yeah, so TikTok is much more of a business. Twitter was always a bit of it was a notorious kind of corporate dumpster fire. It never made money. It was really poorly run, and it was kind of a sitting duck in a way for somebody who like Elon Musk, who has a bunch of money and the interest. TikTok is a much bigger beast. It's used by 170 million people just in the States, and I think about a third of Britain. This is they've got more than 1 billion users globally. This is a much, much bigger beast and much more complex.
And how much money does it make? Do we know that it being owned in China?
We don't, because it's a private company. It's owned by ByteDance in the parent company in China, and they don't break out specifically what it makes, but it brings in well over $10 billion, for example, which is more than Twitter and now X ever made.
So whether it was Musk or not, and as you say, he has the sort of not invented here syndrome. If he's not thought of it himself, I get the feeling he doesn't like doing it very much. So I'm sure there's a factor in that. Speaking more broadly, then, does TikTok need to be sold? Because the reason why Musk might buy it, the reason why it might be sold, is that Trump has said it's going to be banned in the US. And if you say that there's got 170 million users in the US, that's almost half the country. Is the ban going to happen? Does the ban necessitate a sale?
So there's a lot of jockeying, as you might imagine. So there was a law passed under the Biden administration, bipartisan, that said we are outlawing this, we're banning this app as of January 19th, which is Sunday. And you can either sell it or you can shut down, but you can no longer operate as a Chinese-owned entity in America. The TikTok went to Supreme Court to argue that this was not fair. For what, according to the oral arguments, it did not appear that the court was particularly persuaded by their arguments. And so any day now they could say, okay, we're upholding this law, therefore the January 19th, that is the deadline. Or the other option is they could say, okay, we're going to kick the can down the road. We're going to, give a 90-day extension because literally the next day, January 20th, is when Trump takes over and he might try to find some other resolution.
Could it be a bargaining chip with China? I mean, Trump is maneuvering all over the place. It's very much America versus China. It feels like the battleground of the next 5 years. Could this be a thing that is one of the bargaining chips?
Absolutely. I think that's very much a possibility. And if you think about TikTok, what other Chinese company has kind of made it in the West as a consumer brand? So it's a really kind of a source of pride for China and of course influence, which is what has a lot of people so worried. So it's a kind of a political hot potato right now.
And presumably China doesn't want to sell it because although they say it's a private company, it presumably isn't in the sense that most Chinese companies are not private companies.
Yeah, I mean it's a private company. The founder is the richest man in China. Um, all of that said, the Chinese government has immense control and power over this company, as it does all of its tech companies. So, kind of what it says goes ultimately.
So if it were to, the way I've seen this reported is if they were to have to sell it, and it sounds to me that would be a very big step when things are still a little bit all to play for.
Yes.
They want to sell it to someone who's both acceptable to the US and acceptable to China. There's
Tricky.
probably not that many people who like that.
No, exactly, exactly, and who has the money to do it, right? But of course, America is we're home of capitalism. There's lots of people who are running the numbers and trying to figure this out because again, it is if you look at social media, it's the only quote unquote new social media platform that has made a dent in the last 15 years.
And just finally, is it rising or falling? Because it's been rising for so long, and I never work out with these things. These companies, these social media platforms, always rise right until the point where they fall, and they this
Yeah.
is over. I mean, where's TikTok in its cycle?
It is still rising. I think the growth has slowed because especially early on the growth was just kind of meteoric. But again, it's kind of the law of large numbers. If you get past a billion people, it's hard to keep growing at 20% at that level. But it is still growing and very, very, very influential, as we all know.
Like me, Danny, you're an old man with kids. Are you on TikTok?
I am because of this job, and I will say every time I write a story on TikTok, I'm like, all right, I've got to get on the app, see what's happening, kind of mess around, and then an hour of my life has disappeared. It's very good. It's very good at what it does, which is sucking you in.
I'm sure that's right. Danny, great to speak to you. We'll see what happens with this story. There seems to be an awful long way to go with it. Thanks so much.